This morning, fans are mourning the loss of Robin Williams.
He was found dead yesterday of an apparent suicide in his Northern California home. His death comes less than 2 months after he posed for this picture at a Dairy Queen in Lindstrom. His publicist said Williams was in rehab at the Hazelden Addiction Treatment Center in Lindstrom at the time to focus on his sobriety. Susan McGinnis reports on how the world is remembering this comic genius.
Fans of Robin Williams were unable to contain their grief that the comedy legend is gone.
Good morning, Vietnam! Help is on the way, dear!
Fans gathered at his Boulder, Colorado home on Monday, well known as the place Mork from Ork lived, and in Chicago, where he was born.
He was just such a good actor, and to hear about it, and especially the fact that it was suicide, it was just...
Fellow celebrities talked about the loss.
Yesterday he was a superstar, and unfortunately today he's a legend. It's a big loss.
Comedian and friend Paul Rodriguez credits Williams with his first big break.
This is a devastating loss for the comedy community, for the show business in general, and for America, really.
As they mourn his tragic death, fans will no doubt focus on the endless laughter he gave the world.
Coming up at 5:30, we have a much more in-depth look at Robin Williams' career and impact. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide, call the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The number is 800-273-TALK. That's 800-273-8255.
This morning, we know the name of the man who was shot and killed at a Holiday gas station in the North Metro. Friends tell us Kelly Phillips was shot around 8:40 yesterday morning. They call him an exceptional man with a great personality, someone who is very caring. Witnesses at the gas station near 35W and Highway 96 say Phillips and another man had an argument before that shooting.
And the guy in the back seat got out, and the guy in the driver's seat also got out with a pistol. And when the guy in the back seat saw the pistol, he turned to run, and the driver shot him in the back.
He got in the car, and it looked like he was struggling to get the car in gear or whatever. Backed up and then ran over the guy's legs as he was leaving, and then took off down 96.
Police believe the two men did know each other. Someone who works near Phillips' home took video of a person being put into handcuffs outside. This is that video. They identified the man as Phillips' boyfriend. Police won't say who that person of interest is or if that person will be charged with a crime. Police still want to find the car involved as well. It's a dark gray 2011 BMW 535i with Minnesota license plate 004EYY.
This morning, the U.S. is delivering more food and water to religious minorities stranded on a mountaintop in Iraq and offering support to the country's new government. Iraq's president nominated a new prime minister yesterday. Under Iraq's constitution, the new prime minister has 30 days to form a coalition government. Meanwhile, U.S. strikes continue taking out ISIS targets, and the State Department says our government is arming Kurdish fighters in an effort to help them fight back.
It is primary election day in Minnesota. Voters from both parties will head to the polls to decide which candidates they want to appear on ballots in November. Turnout is expected to be very low. Out of the 3.1 million Minnesota voters, the Minnesota Secretary of State thinks only 10 to 15% will turn out. It's compared to 27% about 20 years ago. One possible reason for the low turnout is that the state had to move the primary to before the state fair, and many voters might not even know that it's time to vote. Low turnout would mean a very small number of people will decide which of the 4 Republican candidates will take on Governor Mark Dayton in November. We spoke with Hamline University political science professor David Schultz.
I'm predicting about a 14% turnout for the primary. Let's say give or take a percent. Let's just be generous and say half of that's going to be Republican, half of that's going to be Democrat. And let's say that maybe the winner of the Republican primary gets a third of the vote. Put it in perspective, about 2% of the population of the state of Minnesota is going to decide who gets to be the Republican nominee for governor.
If we do the math even further with those numbers, a candidate running for governor could win their party's nomination with as few as 30,000 votes. We're watching several other close races as well. There's a hotly contested Democratic primary for state auditor between the incumbent Rebecca Otto and former minority leader Matt Intenza. Mike McFadden is a favorite in the GOP U.S. Senate race against Minnesota State Representative Jim Abler. And we're watching a couple of state legislative races that could be major upsets in Minneapolis and Eden Prairie. The polls are open from 7 o'clock this morning until 8 o'clock tonight. CCO's Pat Kessler will have results and analysis in several of the races tonight at 5, 6, and 10.
Target's new CEO takes over starting today. Brian Cornell is the former chief executive of PepsiCo Americas Foods. He becomes Target's first CEO hired from outside the company. Cornell joins Target after a rocky year for that retailer, including the massive security data breach, lagging online sales, and a challenging entry into the Canada market. An iconic movie made its premiere 75 years ago today in Wisconsin.
Yeah, The Wizard of Oz had its world premiere on August the 12th, 1939 in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, 3 days before opening in Hollywood. It was apparently chosen to test the film's appeal to middle Americans. So it's located between Madison and Milwaukee. Kind of interesting fun fact.
I did not know that. I lived, of course, in Milwaukee for a couple of years. Went to college there. Oconomowoc, just a suburb there.
I don't think you were around in 1939.
I was not, no, but that's the kind of fun fact. You think people would be like, well, the Wizard of Oz. I mean, here, you'd hear about it forever, you know what I mean? Did you know Judy Garland is from
Grand Rapids?
Yeah.
Every Minnesotan knows that.